Hello guys, thank you so much for joining me today, and I'm so sorry about the technical problems, but hopefully it's all working now. If you have any problems with videos or the audio, can you let me know in the chat? And okay, well, I think I'm ready to start now. I'm a bit nervous, but hopefully it's gonna go well. So the subject for today's stream is finding meaning of life. So I was wondering if we could start this session by you first explaining to me, what do you think the meaning of life is? What does it mean to you personally? And we'll go from there. So if you want to type in your message in the chat box, and we'll go from there. Anyone? All right, so maybe I'll start myself, since maybe there's a delay in the video and the chat. So for me personally, the meaning of life consists of several elements. So we have something that makes sense to us. So the meaning of life would be simply a story we tell ourselves that is coherent, right? That makes sense to us personally. It doesn't have to make sense to other people, although there is also this concept of the objective meaning of life. But I think most importantly, meaning is something that matters to us. So coherent life story, coherent narrative. And I'm getting some comments there. Someone says balance. Yeah, for you personally it might be balance, for other people also it might be balance, right? So we also have finding balance and peace, right? We are just shy. People say we are just shy. Well, nobody's gonna judge you. That's why we are here, right? So we can discuss these different ideas. Someone says purpose, and that's what I'm gonna get into as well. So we have things like finding balance and peace, finding balance, coherent life story, making sense of our experience, right? The purpose, in turn, people often associate purpose and meaning as two kind of connected phenomena, right? So purpose is something that guides us, right? Guides our action. And perhaps if you think about meaning as a story we tell ourselves, as something that makes sense to us, as something that we use to interpret our experience, purpose is something that we apply this meaning in practice, right? So if you think, for example, meaning of my life could be a balance, like people were saying, or evolution. A purpose would be to do something towards that meaning, right? So finding the balance, finding peace, and doing things that put this meaning into practice, right? So once we clarify what the meaning is, what the purpose is, that's way easier to, use this theory in practice. So what can we do in order to find that meaning, find that purpose in life? And I was wondering what you guys normally struggle with, because I can see there are around 20 people right now, and the title of this live stream is to find meaning, right? Finding meaning in life. So I would imagine there's something within you that wants to find that meaning, right? Something perhaps that prevents you from finding that meaning, maybe, or finding the purpose, right? Otherwise, why would you be here? I mean, unless you have some meaning in life, but you want to find something more. So can you type in again in the chat box? What prevents you from finding meaning in life? What stops you? Or perhaps what sort of issues do you experience around this idea of finding the meaning of life? For me personally, so I'm going to start first. The meaning of life for me changes all the time, and the purpose as well. So as I gather new data or new information about life in general, or the more I learn about myself, my personal meaning kind of broadens and widens, right? It becomes more complicated, more sophisticated as I include this new information about myself and other people. So meaning of life for me is kind of very fluid, very dynamic, which kind of, in a way, sometimes makes my life challenging, because then I have to shift my purpose to accommodate that meaning as well. So once in a while, I have to completely reinvent my story, my life story, and kind of connect with this new meaning that I acquire, new meaning of life that I create through new experiences and through learning. So the biggest challenge for me is obviously to keep shifting and keep updating and keep, you know, keeping that meaning and focus without losing myself in the whole process. So I'm getting comments here. So people are saying, next level Nick, for example, unconscious self-sabotage. Yeah, I think unconscious self-sabotage could prevent you from finding that meaning, or prevent you from actualizing this meaning in practice. So having a purpose, because I think that if you have a meaning but you're not doing anything about it, you're not going to be feeling like you're having any purpose. So you're not going to be using that meaning to actualize itself in practice. So you're not going to be striving towards this meaning. You're not going to be doing anything. So unconscious self-sabotage in this case, I think, could be in terms of, for example, fear of doing what's meaningful to you personally, that's aligned with that meaning. Or it could confuse you. The unconscious self-sabotage could be some beliefs that prevent you from seeing the bigger picture, seeing more to your life story. We also got a comment, the impulse to go into extremes. So yeah, going into extremes throws you out of this balance of seeing yourself connected with this meaning, for example, or not doing what needs to be done to fulfill your purpose, to fulfill that meaning. Let's read some more comments. Confusion of direction to go. Yeah. Right, so I think confusion of the direction to go could be, again, kind of connected to that purpose. So perhaps you might have a meaning, but you're not sure which direction to go in terms of how can you apply this meaning in practice. Or perhaps your narrative, your meaning might be kind of incoherent enough. So for me personally, I think that how to put it, if you're not sure which direction you want to go, that is the issue with the purpose. So that means that you have some meaning, right? You have some coherent narrative of your life, but you're not sure how to apply it in practice, right? Or you have a drive to apply things in practice, but there are some puzzles missing from your life story, right? Which we're gonna probably go into more detail. We got more comments. What prevents you from finding that meaning? Nihilistic thoughts, no answer to question why, fear of unknown. So yeah, that's quite a lot of things in one comment. So nihilistic thoughts, I would imagine that you mean that nothing makes sense, nothing has any meaning in life, or perhaps that there's no point in doing anything, right? But if you kind of step back from this nihilism, you can see that actually nihilism itself is a meaning, right? I've done a video on nihilism quite a while ago. So even if the nihilism proclaims that there's no meaning, or there's no purpose, or there's no point in doing certain things, the very fact that you're creating this narrative is the meaning itself, right? So that's something to consider. No answer to the question why, fear of the unknown. I think these are two connected ideas, right? So no answer to the question why could create a fear of the unknown, right? Because then you ask yourself, why are you here in the first place, right? So this is something to overcome in terms of uncertainty, and perhaps it connects with this idea of not having a coherent life story. So as you can see here, we start putting these different puzzles together in terms of how to find that meaning, how to create the meaning, right? And then perhaps how to apply it in practice. Let's see more comments, see what else is going to come up. I know where I want to be in the long term, but I'm sure, or maybe I'm not sure, I should act now to get there, and I don't know how to deal with other people when making changes. Yeah, so that probably deals with the purpose element. So it's the second element of meaning, right? So purpose is how to apply the meaning you have into practice. So in this situation, in that situation of that comment, where you're sure that you should act now, but you don't know how to deal with other people when making changes. So other people, in a way, prevent you from making these changes in a way. But if you look closely, this is belief that you are holding about people in a way, right? So if you look again at your comment here, I don't know how to deal with other people when making changes. So you assume that other people prevent you from making changes, or perhaps that other people stop you from making changes, or perhaps that there are consequences to the changes that you initiate that will affect other people. So there are multiple beliefs that you can tackle in order to actualize this meaning, right? So to do something about this meaning, right? And pursue the purpose. All right, so we analyzed kind of some obstacles to finding the meaning and purpose based on what you guys were saying in the comments. I can see here that it is kind of easy to put together the purpose and the meaning as one and connected idea, but the moment you split it, it's actually getting very easy, because if we recap what I was talking about, the meaning is just the life story, it's the narrative, it's the whole belief system, it's how you interpret your experience, it's how you make sense of what's happening within you and around you. And then the purpose is what you do with that information. So if you are struggling with meaning in life, right, it's possible you struggle with purpose as well. So once you tackle these two elements as two separate elements, it gets easier, in my opinion at least. I know it's easy to say, obviously, and way more difficult to apply it in practice, but the moment you separate it, I think it clears things up. So in that case, you could start by dealing with meaning itself, or lack of meaning itself. And I think one of the strategies that we could be using for the lack of meaning in life is to make sure that our narrative is coherent, it makes sense to us. So what I mean by that is that we need to be able to look at ourselves as a sort of actor in a story, in a way. It's just a metaphor, but our past experiences should make sense to us in some extent. So finding the answer to the question of why something happened in the past, or how our past experiences help us to become a person we are today, that could be one element of creating that coherent narrative, right? Then adding to that narrative and sense making, in essence, is making sense of our own self. So who we are as a person, right? Why are we the way we are? I mean, obviously, maybe it's not possible to find all the possible causes for why you are the person you are, and it's very possible to go completely astray with this question. But at least understanding yourself on this basic level. So, for example, where your feelings or where your emotions are coming from, right? What triggers these feelings and these emotions, and how it contributes to the person you are. So, how it influences your behavior, how it influences the relationships with other people. That all contributes to this coherent narrative, right? And then when you start looking towards the future, so where do you think you're going? We are still on this bit of meaning, right? So where do you think you could be going, right? What sort of consequences there might be to the actions that you are taking today, right? So all these different elements contribute to your life meaning, because then you extract the conclusions. All right, so this happened, which means la la la, right? So all these different elements contribute to creating this meaning. Let's read some comments. That's a very interesting comment. It has been difficult for me to separate an item or concept as meaningless, as it raises the question for me. Is it meaningless, or is my assignment of a meaning inaccurate or limiting? Yeah, that is a very interesting question, because with this question, you're basically pointing out to this concept called metacognition. So stepping outside your beliefs and examining them from this broader perspective, right? So for example, I might have, as you pointed out in this comment, I might have a belief about something. My life is meaningful. This is pointless, right? I don't know where I'm going. I don't know who I am. But then you can also step out from this paradigm and examine how accurate it is. So verify it by facts, for example, verify it with other people, verify it against the factual data you're getting from the environment. So outcomes that you're getting from your actions, right? So using metacognition, by the way, once we're on this subject, enables you to look at your whole belief structure. So I kind of used a brief example of that when I said questioning our feelings and emotions before, because it contributes to that this coherent narrative we have. But once you use the metacognition, it allows you to think about how you think, so how you're making sense of your whole experience. So I think I'm just going to read one more comment. I think the hard part is coming up with a life story that I feel confident about. Right, so you're not sure if the meaning you hold is right or is correct. I'm just assuming here. Or whether you are right in making sense of your experience. I'm making assumptions just based on these short comments. Yeah, so this again kind of links to this metacognition, where there is a shadow to this process, right? So once you start stepping up outside your beliefs, outside of how you interpret things, so when you start looking at, okay, that's how I make sense of my experience, I think there's a risk for going completely astray with this process, because then you start questioning, all right, so how do I make sense of that, right? Am I right in seeing certain things a certain way? And actually, in my opinion, this process has its benefit. And for me personally, the problem is not being able to kind of deal with uncertainty, right? Or not being able to tolerate ambivalence, right? But I think it's possible to have some life story that has some meanings for us, and at the same time not be confident about it, right? I know it doesn't make sense at first, but there could be a life story, there could be a narrative, right? But perhaps you might you might start doubting yourself that maybe it's not right, maybe it's not correct. And actually, this attitude could either lead you completely astray, where you start questioning every single thing in your life, or it will enable you to question your own beliefs and then update the whole narrative of your life that you've created with the new data, because you are able to question yourself. So you're not saying that, okay, my beliefs are 100% sure, but you leave the door open towards new beliefs and new informations coming up. Okay, anything else on the meaning part before we move on to the purpose? Yeah, accepting ambiguity is, I think it's pretty helpful. I know it might be anxiety provoking a little bit, at least for me, um, where there are too many kind of contradictory information, or where I'm not certain what exactly am I believing in or what is going on, but kind of tolerating it and actually having just a little bit of anxiety to keep you on your toes, to keep you aware and conscious in a way, it could be quite beneficial. Yeah, a double-edged sword, exactly. All right, so we have this meaning part kind of sorted out. If we move to the purpose part, as I said before, the purpose is application of this meaning in practice. So what sort of goals can you set for yourself based on the meaning that you've created? So the elements of that meaning, as we said, the life story, who you are as a person, where your beliefs and emotions and feelings are coming from, okay? All this network of how you interpret your experience. What sort of conclusion can you draw from this data that you are having, from this information? What sort of goals can you set for yourself based on what you know about yourself and about your experience? That, in essence, that is the purpose. So I might have I might have a story of my life, for example, that I enjoy music. I enjoy creating music, right? Right. So I know that part of myself. I know what it means to create music, right? I know what sort of feelings and emotions and experience when creating music. So now, based on all that data that I'm having about the meaning I have created about my experience, I can now start seeing outside of myself. So where am I going with this meaning? What is the goal here, right? If I enjoy music, why not having more of these experiences, right? Why not doing more around these experiences that give me some pleasure, some positive experience, some positive feelings? That's essentially purpose. And then essentially you will see that you can break down this meaning of your life into different elements and draw conclusions from them and use them for the purpose of creating goals. So the meaning is a kind of conclusion or the data that you gather from your experiences. So again, how you interpret these experiences, how these experiences make sense to them. And then the purpose is what you're gonna do about it, right? So I would imagine that there might be some obstacles to actualizing this meaning in practice, right? Because then it's not that easy, right? Because you have to deal with other people, as other people in the comment section were saying. You have to deal with other people. You have to deal with resources and the obstacles in the external world that might prevent you from actualizing this meaning in practice. So how could we tackle the purpose that is aligned with our meaning? So how could we develop goals for ourselves that are aligned with who we are as a person, or who we believe that we are as a person, and the purpose, and also the goals that are achievable, are doable, and they will still kind of create this coherence with the meaning that we are having. Because if I use the same example of, for example, I enjoy creating music, but then if I set my goals for, all right, so I'm gonna do some gardening instead, that kind of that is a big mismatch between the goal, my action that I'm planning to do, and the meaning that I'm having. Even though I might, enjoy some gardening, it's not on my priority list, right? Because the central point of my personality could be music, creating music. So by focusing on creating these goals for yourself, which is a purpose, right? You need to make sure that this is aligned with the meaning. So we're kind of balancing these two together. Your purpose might be to perhaps actualize your meaning or push it towards, bigger meaning. For example, personal growth is important to me, which is part of the meaning of my life. So the purpose of my life will be to learn more about personal development, for example, or engage in personal development. So as you can see here, once you start breaking things down, it's not actually that difficult to create a purpose, to create goals for yourself that keep you on track. So you're not going, you're not wandering around, shooting aimlessly at goals that don't really make sense to you, that will lead you completely astray, but you keep this coherence of your life story. Am I close to understanding? You express an investment of creating music, gives you elements that you wish to assign to what defines you. That action of assignment is what manifests the purpose. Yeah, I think you could say that way. I mean, it's essentially, if you know yourself well enough, let me reread that just to make sure that I understand. Well, essentially, as I was, yeah, you could use that assignment to what defines me, or definition of identity, as a purpose. But you could also use it in the stage of creating meaning, right? Because what defines you is a part of your life story, is a part of the meaning that you're creating, right? So the purpose in that case would be take the elements from that meaning and putting it out there, right? So basically expressing that part of you that you assigned meaning to, expressing the life story, the narrative, everything that's within you that you want to express, and express it in practice. So we could put it that way. The action loses purpose when the actual intent doesn't align with your personal constitution. Exactly, right. Because the moment you start setting goals that are completely misaligned with the meaning, you're gonna end up with a life that is meaningless, literally. Like, it's not just a nihilism where it's like, all right, there is no meaning, but literally you're gonna be like, okay, here's the meaning, I'm this person, but then I'm doing something completely different, right? Something that I don't value, something that I don't believe in, and that's what creates the life that is completely meaningless. Getting feedback from my external world helps a lot. Right. So you could also see it in terms of the feedback loop. So you express the purpose, you express the meaning in a form of purpose, in a form of goals, and you get this feedback loop from other people, from the external world. And that feedback loop, in my opinion, also gives you more information that you can update your personal meaning with, because that's how you learn about yourself, and that's how you kind of update the way how you interpret the world, how you interpret yourself, and your own self definition. You guys have any other doubts or questions around the part of the purpose? All right, so I can't see any more comments about the purpose side. So we see there is a meaning, there is a purpose. I discussed all that. There's one more element that I wanted to discuss, and I think many people find it quite important to defining their own personal meaning. And I think it's the external meaning, so objective meaning of life, if you like. Is there a purpose? Is there a meaning in life inherited in the world itself that we could kind of use to direct our life, to direct our action? And I think it's a super challenging question to answer, because again, there is some, like, we cannot step out completely outside of our mind and make sense of the whole world without using our mind, right? It's not going to be completely objective. So when we look at the world itself and other people and various experiences that we are having, we still use this subjective element to make sense. So regardless if there is or there isn't any external meaning in life itself or in the world, I don't think it's possible to find it so far, at least, because in order to see that meaning, we need to be using this subjective mind that we are having. But humanity is quite stubborn. Humans are really stubborn, and I think that even if we are using this subjective mind, this personal way of interpreting things, we can find ways of kind of getting as accurate image of the world, of the reality, as possible in this particular moment. So we kind of touched before on this idea of metacognition, right? So metacognition, going outside of your thinking, so being able to kind of quote unquote objectively look at your emotions, at your beliefs, and question where they're coming from, what's the purpose, how they got developed, etc. By using the same method, we can analyze how we make sense of the world around us. So how we make sense of the reality or of the universe or science or psychology or physics, whatever you're interested in. So this process, of course, it's always internal, right? Because we are using something that's probably in our brains, can't be certain here, but essentially it is an internal process of reflection. So we can split then the meaning as having a personal component and a more objective or external component. So personal meaning, we kind of touched on that, but there's also external element. So what is the meaning out there? What is the meaning of the existence, right? Really mysterious questions, but again, splitting this concept can make our lives a little bit easier. So what do you guys think about the external meaning? So objective meaning, if you like. And I'm gonna read some comments and questions I'm having so far. I don't believe in a universal objective purpose for everyone, but our surroundings can give rise to individual goals. Right. So from your perspective, there's no objective purpose, there's no objective meaning, but we are kind of enclosed in kind of field where we can see the purpose around us in a way. Perhaps that's how you that's how you see it? Is that what you meant, Ashwin? So basically we're embedded kind of in this field where we make sense of the experiences around us in a way. Or the experiences around us and other people influence how we see life as well. Anyway, so I can't see any comments about the objective meaning or external meaning. So I'm just gonna share my perspective and see what you think. So external meaning is something that possibly many people share. So it's not completely locked into one particular individual. Like for me personally, it might be music, but it doesn't mean other people are sharing it either. Some people will, some people won't, right? So personal meaning is very, very private, very personal, right? Just as the name suggests. But external meaning, it has to contain some elements of the objective world in it. So in my opinion, one of the elements would be something that at least most people share. Or I would even say that the majority, 90%, 95% of people share. So something common to all individuals. So something that we can all agree on. right? So something common to most people. What else could there be for the external meaning? Shared experiences, perhaps. So experiences that most people share. For example, if you put a group, all humanity, in a forest, right, and you chop a tree and everyone sees that tree falling, that's gonna be part of the meaning. That's gonna be part of the external meaning, right? So in this way, we can start kind of analyzing how it's easy these days to get misinformed about certain things, get misinformed about what life is, what is right, what is wrong, right? Which is all part of external meaning, actually. All these stereotypes, all these beliefs, all these social influences and social norms, this is all kind of part of this external meaning, socially created reality in a way. But the moment actually you start analyzing it, it looks like, okay, maybe it's not that objective at all. It's just based on how many people are sharing a certain belief or sharing a certain social norm. And if you think about like this kind of social reality, if you like, it's actually really a small drop in a whole universe. Like, it's so easy to mistake it for an actual meaning of life. Like, the meaning of life is to read the news. Meaning of life is do this and this and this because other people are doing it, right? But the fact that other people are doing something doesn't determine the meaning of life, in my opinion at least. It might look like it's an external meaning because lots of people are doing it in the first place. But what if it's in a conflict with personal meaning? I think it's something that we need to consider as well. See some comments. Existence is quite horrific when you think about it. Yeah, kind of is. But I think it's also quite exciting. I mean, fear and excitement are actually very similar emotions. So on the biological level, fear and excitement, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Fear and excitement actually share lots of biological features. The major difference is actually with fear, the breathing is quite disturbed, whereas with excitement it's deeper and flows easier. Kind of off the topic here. People who come off psychedelics often seem to say that objective meaning is love. I've never done psychedelics, but that seems to be common. Right, okay. Maybe it is love, right? Maybe it is. But then if you look at your comment, it's still, even they say that the objective meaning is love, it's still limited to certain people. So it's not like, could there be the objective meaning here? Or is it limited to people who do psychedelics or who had psychedelic experiences? Although, maybe people with these experiences can see more than other people. I don't know. Don't you think that it is possible to live a life and never find meaning in it? Yeah, I think it is possible, but I kind of touched on it before, just to briefly repeat myself, just to answer this question. Even when you're living life with no meaning, it is still meaning, because the moment you say that there is no meaning, it is a meaning, right? It is a structure of your interpretation of your experience. It is your belief. And then as a result of this action, as a result of this belief, interpretation, saying that, okay, there's no meaning, you're gonna act like there's no meaning. So, yeah. That's why I personally don't believe in nihilism, and nothing is... It's still meaningful. Like, even nihilism is still meaningful. All right, so we have some ideas about the possible external meaning. Um, for me personally, I agree with certain theories from psychology that state that each human being goes through certain developmental stages. So it's like we have been assigned a purpose or a purpose to our lives at start. We don't really choose to go through these stages. We don't really choose to develop certain things, but it happens naturally as a part of this personal evolution, I would say. So as we develop physically from infancy until the day we die, basically, we are going through all these different stages of development. So it's like there is some meaning and some purpose to our lives, and it does seem like we are not fully in charge of this process. So it's like when you're an infant, you're gonna have certain cognitive capabilities, and then when you're an adult, you're gonna have way developed cognitive capabilities, and that's just one element of the path of the human development. There are many different theories. Another theory, probably most of you are familiar with the pyramid of needs, Maslow's pyramid of needs, hierarchy of needs, sorry, which says that, okay, once you develop these basic needs, which are physiological needs, so make sure that you eat, that you have a roof over your head, you can start striving towards this higher needs, so love and belonging, self-esteem, and then eventually self-actualization. So do you think that people are choosing this path? Because it appears that, accordingly to psychological theories, it does appear that we have been assigned naturally this path of development. So regardless if we want to develop or we don't want to develop, we're going to keep developing. It's probably a matter of question of how we are developing and where we are developing, because I personally don't believe that we can stop the development completely, but I think that we can develop in the wrong way. We can pause our development, or we can get stuck with our development, but that development never stops. And there are many different theories on development. So we are constantly in this process of becoming, right? So it's not like, okay, I am this person with this Myers-Briggs personality, that's my limit, that's all I am. I don't think that's true at all, and that's not what psychology is saying, because we are constantly evolving in a way. We gather new experiences, we learn more about ourselves, right? And then we refine our goals and our actions, our behavior. So we act accordingly with this new information. We're gonna, of course, have anxiety, have social anxiety, have fears that stop us from applying this meaning in practice, this new information. But it doesn't mean that our development will completely stop. So self-actualization is one of the theories. It's one of my favorite theories, actually. And most people associate self-actualization in that Maslow's hierarchy of need pyramid as the last stage. But actually there's something more than this. There's something called self-transcendence. So basically becoming even more. So when we reach self-actualization is about completely actualizing actualizing all that we are in all that we've learned to be, right? All our potential, our skills into practice. But then self-transcendence is basically letting everything go. So basically what happens is people are in order to keep developing, you start looping between these two stages. So self-actualization, you learn everything you can about yourself. So metacognition, learning all about your beliefs, your feelings, where they're coming from, what sort of person you are, what triggers you have, what angers you, what your shadow consists of. That's super important. And then as a part of the self-transcendence, you let it all go. So you become more open to experience, you become more flexible, you become kind of more adaptable. And it looks like, many people are questioning the whole idea, but if you look at the, for example, theories of evolution, it looks like the big chunk of evolution is learning how to be adaptable, how to be open to experiences so that we can learn as much as we can. So do you think that we're choosing this path? Do you think that we are directing this self-development? Because it looks like all the stages, they just happen naturally, right? You start with physiological needs, for example, in infancy and childhood, then you move towards relationships, right? So relationship for teenagers is the most important thing, right? Fitting in, getting as many friends as possible, becoming popular. But then that's not enough. Then you want more. So then you strive towards respect, recognition, right? Self-esteem needs, becoming successful, getting education, getting a career, right? Getting rich, whatever matters to you. Then relationships, right? Finding people that you can share, you can be intimate with, close relationships. And then once you have it all, you actualize yourself. You're complete, right? That's it. You learn, you know everything about yourself. So what's next? You let everything go. So I didn't mean to discuss this theory so in depth, kind of got carried away here. But there are many different theories of development. There is cognitive development, so how we make sense of our world around us, how we reason about things. There's personal development, like self-actualization. There's psychosocial development, so how our social skills evolve, how we function as a part of the society. So all these different theories point to a fact that we are developing, right? And all these theories are right. All these theories suggest that we are on this path of development. And it appears that there is some connection with the external meaning here, because if it doesn't belong to us, if it happens regardless if we want it to happen or not, does it not belong to external meaning then, or external purpose even? What do you guys think? Someone said it guides us unconsciously. Right, exactly. So there is something within us that pushes us forward. Something that even when we reach perhaps the bottom of life, it still provides us with something to do, somewhere to go, if we only know what the stages are, and most importantly, if we only know enough about ourselves. So I think that could be a huge part of the external meaning. In terms of the completely objective meaning, where we take even broader perspective, looking at the whole universe, I think it's beyond of the human capability to even learn about it in the first place. Also, I'm personally interested just in psychology, so I'm gonna leave the meaning of the universe for maybe another time. All right, we have a few minutes left. So I was thinking to finish this session with giving you an opportunity to ask questions. As I said, as I promised in this live stream, I'm happy to do the Q&A for another 10-15 minutes maybe. So if you want, you can continue asking, perhaps if you have any questions in regards to that life meaning and purpose, but I'm also open to answering any sort of questions you might be having as well. You mentioned people don't choose to progress up the hierarchy of needs. How does one reach self-transcendence? So the self-transcendence stage is the stage just above the self-actualization. So self-actualization is learning mostly about yourself. So learning about your shadow, your needs, your feelings, your past, anything that constitutes you, as I said before. Self-transcendence is letting all go, letting all completely go. So an example here would be someone who has been well accomplished in the world, very successful, has family, feels completely fulfilled, knows everything about themselves, is absolutely the most successful person you could imagine, and they choose to go to monastery, for example, or they choose to kind of, let's use the monastery example. They go to monastery and they let everything go. So they transcend who they think they were. So they define, they get a new definition. They become more. So if they define themselves, for example, silly example of having a certain personality type, they transcend it. So they can see that they can actually do more. So a certain personality type, for example, is just the limit, but it's just the perspective. But in reality, they are capable of doing way more. So it's not like I'm choosing, okay, today I'm gonna self-transcend, but it's more a process of continuous learning about yourself to a point where you're like, all right, I can do actually more. So it's not like you're choosing the next stage. I don't know if that makes sense. Let me know if that clarifies things. Let's read some more questions. I still see some people who are in their 40s and 50s who are still gaslighting, scapegoating, and all that crap. They aren't taking responsibility for their own personality. Still, they don't know them. Well, yeah, that is, as I said, like, you can't fully stop the development, but you can kind of get stuck in a way. So to use another theory, it's called the positive disintegration theory. It's all part of the developmental psychology. Basically, what happens is you develop your ego in various stages. That's not just the positive disintegration, there are other developmental theories, but let's say your ego develops in certain stages. When you reach 40 and 50, I'm pretty sure your ego is pretty stable. So what happens is that in order to get stuck on on some developmental level, what happens is that your ego disintegrates a little bit, so you get stuck on some stage, and then you gather new experiences. You grow a little bit to the next stage, but if you are facing blocks on lower levels of development, whichever developmental theories you want to use, you're not going to progress further. So what happens is with certain people, they can reach only a certain level of development, and they can't go more unless they are willing to do work on lower levels. Hope that answers your comment / question. Do you know anything about spiral dynamics? Yes, I was actually meant to talk about this theory here, but for some reason I felt like if I started talking about spiral dynamics, I'm gonna go completely astray. But yeah, to briefly explain, if anyone's interested, spiral dynamics is like an integral theory of many different theories in developmental psychology. So spiral dynamics, the theory is that you're basically this dynamic self that is developing on a spiral, goes through different stages of development, of different elements of development. So psychosocial development, cognitive, self-actualization, and so on. And in order to progress to higher levels, which is not like, but at the same time, it's not like you go to that level and you're permanently on that level, but it's more like different levels will come up in different situations. And the highest level you can go to is your potential. So the highest level in spiral dynamics is like complete holistic perspective, when you are completely open to all experiences. You have your witness awareness, you have your witness self, completely disidentified from your body, just kind of completely transparent. The lowest level is basically when you're an infant, so you're focused on kind of live in the instinctual world. So Each stage of the spiral dynamics has a specific belief system or the paradigm that you are using to interpret your experience and the world around you. And in order to move to the next level of the dynamic of the spiral, you switch the paradigm to a more open, to more developed one. And people from lower levels cannot understand people from the higher levels. So in order to reach high levels, in order to understand higher levels, you need to kind of simply develop your belief system. So again, links to that meaning of life, making sense of your experience, making sense of external experience. That's in short. I might do a video on spiral dynamics at some point. Next question. I'm having difficulty launching a new product, but I feel stuck and I don't know why. Should I contact you via your website? Well, yeah, if you're interested in coaching, I do offer coaching on my website. So you can either send me a message there, or you can book an appointment straight away. You can book a free consultation if you're not sure whether coaching is right for you. But yeah, I'm currently open to taking up new clients, and I would be certainly happy with helping you with launching a new product. You could argue that the growth you mentioned hasn't actually happened outside of the control, like you mentioned before. Let me mull over it. Could argue that the growth you mentioned. Well, yeah, you could happen outside of the control, or they couldn't. I mean, we have some control over our development. Like I said, we can learn about ourselves. We can question our beliefs. We can develop better relationships. But it's not like, you wake up one morning, all right, today I'm going to cross to the next level of spiral dynamics, or today I'm going to cross the next developmental stage. That's ridiculous. It just doesn't happen. Like, I don't feel like we have this control to choose stages like this. But what we can do is learn as much as we can about ourselves and keep shifting these beliefs, keep updating our data, keep updating the information we have on ourselves and the world around us. And then we can keep checking ourselves against certain developmental theories. All right, I'm probably here, so to reach higher level, maybe I could switch some beliefs, shuffle around. So it's not like we can choose the developmental stage, but we can take certain steps towards reaching this higher levels, I hope. Beyond the self-transcendent stage, what, if anything, do you believe is beyond that? Do we start again beginning with a new hierarchy? Yeah, that is an interesting question. Well, I think to understand what's beyond the self-transcendence, you would probably need to ask someone who reached the stages. As I said before, people on lower stages can't understand fully people from higher stages. So you can kind of conceptualize it, but if you have never been there, it's difficult to understand. So as far as I know, the stages after the self-transcendence are not fully conceptualized. But if you use the spiral dynamics along with this, we would imagine it would be like global consciousness, love, complete openness to experience, stuff like that. Let's see more. Do all people go through the hierarchy of needs pyramid in order? Does that mean people are predictable, or are humans unpredictable and difficult to categorize? Alright, so the first question here, do people go through pyramid in order? Actually, Maslow theorized that you don't have to go through the whole thing in order, but if you skip few stages, these few stages on the bottom are gonna prevent you from moving forward. So for example, you could reach self-actualization stage, but if you don't have money for food, that's gonna be difficult to actualize your potential, right? Or if you reach a stage of love and belonging, for example, but you have like fundamental distrust of people because, I don't know, as a child you experience some trauma around being in a difficult environment, that lower stage will prevent you from moving forward at first, but also keeping yourself more stable on these higher levels. So that there is an interaction, but it's not like you all people are going through the same stages in the same order. That's accordingly to self-actualization theory. But there are other developmental theories which have specific stages of development in mind. So if you go, for example, with Piaget or Erikson, people's cognition develop in the same order up to a certain stage. So there are some elements that are stable for all people, and there are other elements that are very personal and based on experience. Let's see another question. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. Is nihilism as a philosophy a veil to hide psychological problems? I feel most nihilistic when I don't feel good psychologically. Yeah, I think it could be. I think it could be both. Actually, it could be either used as a philosophy to kind of prevent you from maybe looking inward or taking responsibility for certain things in your life, but I think it also could be an outcome of something else going on within you. So it's kind of beyond my competence here whether like depression causes nihilism and stuff like that, so I don't really want to go into mental health disorders here, but I think that nihilism, it could be, again, as someone was saying in comments, it's like a double-edged sword. So nihilism could be either used as something that destroys you or something that creates your life. So you could use nihilism to push you forward, so let go of things that don't matter to you anymore. So okay, that's meaningless, but you could also fall into this trap of nihilism where nothing makes sense anymore and you don't want to, and you give up on life essentially. So kind of depends on the context. All right, let's take one more question and I will be going off. So the quote goes, be like water. Would you say that best represents being ready to update as you move through the stages? Yeah, being ready to update. That is a good metaphor, I think. So being open enough to reach these higher stages. And it's not easy. In my opinion, it's not that easy to reach these higher stages because a part of your beliefs, you have to face different challenges. So different blocks that prevent you from acting in the world. Right? So being open, it doesn't mean just being open to different nice things that will happen in your life, but also being open to all the kind of unpleasant feelings and emotions you might experience. Your shame of being wrong, right? Or anxiety of doing certain new things in your life. So being open to these negative emotions could be helpful as well. Yeah, absurdism is fun. Do you believe that holding on to grief is what prevents progress towards higher levels of self-actualization? I'm not entirely sure what you mean holding on to grief. I mean, if you're holding on to grief, there's something probably that's not processed. I would imagine that's what holding represents. So you're not letting go of the grief. But grief as a whole, as a human feeling, human emotion, I think it's just a part of human experience to experience grief. It's just when we struggle to process it, perhaps that might block us. Alright guys, I will be going off. It was really nice talking to you. Sorry again about the technical problems I was having on the beginning, but hopefully it went good enough. So again, thank you very much for joining. If you're interested in coaching, I am open to taking up new clients. You can book your session, you can book your free consultation on my website, or you can send me a direct message and I can answer any questions you might be having about coaching. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.